Have you ever found yourself reacting in a way that just feels automatic? Almost like there's a program running in the background of your mind that you definitely didn't write. Well, today, we're going to dive into that. We're exploring the deep and often invisible connection between our childhood and the habits that shape us as adults. We're about to reveal the hidden architecture of our own survival. This right here, this quote, is the key to our entire explainer. And look, this isn't about blame. Not at all. It's about understanding a really fundamental truth. Our earliest experiences created a kind of emotional operating system, and that system is still running, long after we've left home. Seriously, think about it. Maybe you get a jolt of anxiety when you hear a car door slam outside. Or maybe you find it absolutely impossible to just relax, even when everything is totally fine. These aren't just random quirks. They are echoes, echoes of a past that you learned to survive. So let's decode them together. Okay, and this is our first huge shift in perspective. We are going to stop looking at these behaviors as flaws. Instead, we're going to start seeing them for what they actually are. Brilliant, highly specialized features that were designed for survival in a world that felt unpredictable. This is where we completely reframe the language we use for ourselves. What society, or maybe even you, might have labeled as overly sensitive, that's actually being highly attuned to your environment, a superpower, really. What looks like being controlling, that's a deep, logical search for stability. And that constant anxiety, that was your brain working overtime, forecasting threats to keep you safe. These were never flaws. They were your armor. So, let's get specific, shall we? We're going to unpack some of these unseen habits and really look at the logic behind them. I want you to think of each one as a clue in the blueprint of your own personal survival architecture. Now, this might sound super specific, but for a lot of you, this is going to feel instantly familiar. Hearing footsteps approaching and immediately knowing who it is, what kind of mood they're in, and what might happen next. Why on earth does that happen? Well, there's actually a clinical term for this. It's called hypervigilance. It's basically a state of being on high alert, like 24/7. Your senses aren't just sharp, they are dialed up to 11, constantly scanning for information, for danger, for the tiniest shift in the emotional temperature of a room. It's an incredible skill, but wow, is it utterly exhausting when the danger is past. So here's the crucial point. This wasn't just passive hearing. Oh no, it was an active, sophisticated data collection system. The creak on the third stair, the specific way a key turns in the lock, each sound was a data point that helped you predict and prepare. It was a superpower born out of pure necessity, one that can now make it so hard to ever feel truly at rest. All right, let's move on to our next clue, this powerful, sometimes really overwhelming need for control. This can show up in all sorts of ways, right? Meticulously planning your day down to the minute, organizing your space perfectly, or feeling this immense stress when things just don't go according to plan. And it just makes perfect sense, doesn't it? If the world around you felt chaotic and unpredictable, then creating your own little pocket of order wasn't just a preference, it was a deep need. Controlling your immediate environment was probably the only way you could build a sense of safety. The challenge now, of course, is that this same drive can create a lot of friction in a world that is, by its very nature, a little messy. Okay, now for one that might seem a little counterintuitive. Someone says something genuinely nice about you, about your work, how you look, and instead of feeling good, you feel suspicious, uncomfortable, or you just immediately brush it off. Why is kindness so hard to let in? The answer really boils down to trust. If you grew up in a place where praise was super rare, or even worse, where it was often followed by criticism, well, your brain learned a critical lesson. Good things might be a trap. Suspicion became a shield. It was just safer not to believe the good stuff. And while that shield kept you safe back then, today it might be blocking the genuine connection you actually deserve. Oh, this is a big one. You know that constant mental churn, replaying conversations over and over, worrying about the future, and always having that nagging feeling that you missed something or that something bad is just around the corner? This reframe is so powerful. We call it overthinking, and we treat it like a bug in our system. But what if its original function was actually threat forecasting? It wasn't just a negative loop. It was a proactive, strategic scan of the horizon for any possible danger. Your mind wasn't trying to torture you. It was doing everything in its power to protect you. The only problem is when that system gets stuck in the on position and it starts forecasting threats everywhere, even where none exist. So, now that we've decoded the blueprint, what do we do with all this? This is where our story shifts, moving from the past and into the present. It's about taking the architect's original plans and deciding what you want to build now. And this, right here, is the turning point. Once you get that your anxiety is just a retired threat forecaster, or your need for control is an old search for safety, you can stop fighting yourself. You can see the mechanism for what it is. And that awareness, it gives you this tiny, crucial little space between a trigger and your reaction. And in that space, that's where your power to choose lies. So here's a super simple framework. When you feel that old habit kicking in, first, just identify it. Just say to yourself, okay, that's my threat forecaster showing up. Second, honor it. Genuinely thank that part of you. It did an incredible job keeping you safe. And third, consciously choose a new response. Ask yourself, is this threat real right now? What response serves the adult I am today? And really, that's the ultimate takeaway. The original programming was written for a war zone, focused completely on survival. But that code, as brilliant as it was in its original context, might not be serving you anymore in a time of peace. You're not in that same environment anymore. And with this new understanding, you now have the ability to write new code. Code for connection, for rest, and for joy. So I'm going to leave you with this question. If you stop seeing these parts of yourself as things you should be ashamed of, and you start seeing them as powerful evidence of your incredible resilience and strength, what does that change? What becomes possible for you right now?